What a great opportunity to go ahead and put us on the map. There's a lot of these kind of awards that the district could be getting with different organizations, whether it's rural water or AWWA, supervisor awards, operator awards, all those kind of things could be put forward, and we could put a better effort towards that. So if you guys have that kind of interest for that kind of great PR, encourage the managers to put those people up on that shelf and be recognized for that.
Mr. Cardinal, I would like to appreciate you for thinking outside the box on this issue, and always encourage the staff to not be afraid to try new things. Sure. And they're going to do things that might look off the wall, but it might not just be marketable to us. It might be something that's marketable to water in general. And we need to think that not only about ourselves, but how this would impact everybody. So excellent job.
I've worked in the insurance industry for over 30 years, and risk management is a huge deal, and that's exactly what this is. That's why you're being recognized, and the JPIA is looking for this across. This idea can now be shared with many other districts, and they usually take 2 or 3 of these ideas that are championed by JPIA, and they make a little show for it in front of 200 or 300 people from water districts across the nation, and I'd like to see every one of these ideas shared with everybody. I was very interested in what you had done for this district, and it's great to hear it. Congratulations.
Just do us one favor, because I do think it's important that we try to promote as many of these innovative ideas as possible, but please don't tell your fellow field staff workers that we made you sit through 3 hours of one of our meetings as a reward.
And I also would like to add that people will come after Bill Cardinal now, because he has been mentioned in the JPIA newsletter, and that goes all over California, in addition to the convention that we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's great opportunities out there for this company to take advantage of. They certainly will put that out to staff. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
wish you all well in your endeavor.
Thank you.
One more comment. I'm just hoping that this will continue this way, and we'll have more presentations.
Yes.
But we'll just tell them to come at 10 o'clock, and that way.
So do Rick.
Yeah, and I want to apologize for that. I honestly didn't know the reports in the effort to be all-inclusive. It was way too comprehensive. So I'm learning, and I'm going to come back with a better schedule on that for the next meeting. So thank you.
I also want to Bill, before you go, I want to thank you as well, and I hope this is the first of many awards that goes out to our staff. I think the idea of it, improving morale and enthusiasm, for what you guys do, usually, again, understaffed, overworked, is very much appreciated.
Well, you'll find the people who work for this district love what they do as a rule. So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, item 6B is a discussion action regarding appointment to board committees and election of members to joint power authorities.
Madam President, the appointment to committees is for the board president to make those appointments, and this agenda item reflects those that you have selected. At the last meeting, you had asked that any board member with interest in particular committees to submit that to the board clerk for collecting, so that you could review that. We did that, and so that is reflected here in the list provided. As well, we have the Joint Powers Authorities for 2015, and what we're listing here are just the proposed representatives. The actual appointment needs to be made by the full board with a motion second, but this reflects again what the interest that we received through the board clerk and as my conversations with you, Madam President, as well.
Okay. So we see, you go through engineering and...
Do we need board action for the committees?
For the
No.
JPAs.
Not for the committees, just the Joint
You're
Powers
just going to read
Authorities.
them off?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to read them off. Okay, Engineering Committee, Director Davidson and myself. Finance Committee, myself and Director Mills. Legislative Committee, Director Ratterman and Director Strange. The Highway 4 Corridor Committee, myself and Director Mills. Oh, I didn't name the alternates. But now we can go to the JPAs, and
I'm just curious, how was the proposed membership generated? Is that your recommendation, or typically we've taken these one at a time, and I'm just curious.
Yes, and Director Davidson, again, that was, we received, so from the last meeting, we received a list from each board member of their preferences through the board clerk, and then that information was shared with the president, and then this reflects basically a synthesis of that information and the choices that the president's made on the committees.
For the JPAs?
For the JPAs. No, the JPAs, this is just a proposal based on, again, the list of preferences that we received and what was communicated to the president, board president, and then my conversations with her. But this is, this is just, again, a proposal. The board could do something else if it so chooses.
any other,
No, it's just, we're going to take them one by one, I imagine.
okay.
Do you want to do that?
I'll make a motion that we elect Director Radaman to the JPI Authority.
Aqua JPA?
Aqua JPIA.
It's the first one on the list.
Do we mention the alternate as well with that, Jeff?
I don't know that we need to mention the alternate being a staffer.
Well, and I only put my name there because just to, in case, I mean, believe it, I would love to hand this off to someone else. The only reason I put myself down is that I'm at these conferences, so it's convenient for me to be there if Director Radaman can't. But if anybody else is going to be there and wants to do it, please, by all means,
Does anybody else have because we can always fall back on him.
I would second your motion there.
I'll make a motion, we close that nomination.
Public comment.
Okay. And, let me see. We're
Second.
going to take them and then vote on them later. Okay?
No, we'll go one by one. Bertha?
One by one?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, public comment? Okay.
Motion
did that?
second.
This is, it's been motioned and it's been motioned to close.
I wanted to let Mona know who did it.
All right.
Jeff, and then second.
And then Dennis. The original motion, the motion to close the nomination was mine and Scott's.
Okay.
I think she's on it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next would be camera.
I'll make a motion that we elect Director Strange and Director Radaman to camera.
Second.
Okay.
Make a motion, we close the nominations.
Second.
That's quick.
No alternate identified there. Are we okay with that?
We
Jeff, would
should,
you like to, or?
I'd be happy to be the alternate. I'll amend my motion to include myself as a alternate. Second it.
second it. Now we can make a nomination to close the nominations.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, okay, Director Strange, Director Radaman, and then the alternate, Director Davidson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comment.
No?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, CPPA,
Make a motion, Larry Diamond be the representative, and both staff members, Dave Egerton, be the alternate.
Second.
second?
Make a motion, we close the nomination.
Okay,
Second?
second. Public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Well,
Aye.
we're getting this down.
Okay, Upper McCollum River Watershed Authority?
You know, I have one request on this. I'd prefer to be one of the principals. It's just, I've got a lot of history with the Upper McCollum watershed. I'm content if everyone's solidified on this. I believe it's really only one position. We only have one spot on that board.
I thought they mentioned two.
I don't think we have two seats at I think we have one seat, as one elected seat, and then we have, usually it's one and an alternative, I believe.
For UMRA?
For UMRA. We have two principals here. I don't believe
Two voting members?
I don't believe we have two voting members. I think it's an individual,
Each agency has a member.
right.
That's true.
This just reflects what we had in place as of 12/15 of last year. So, that may exactly be what it, but for some reason, we did have two representatives and an alternate. At least that's the action the board took. But it sounds like we need to clarify that one. Maybe we should come
I
back.
believe we have one actual member, and then we have an alternate.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just wanted to clear that up, and I really, whatever you guys want to do, but the Upper McCollum is going to be, there's a lot of catch-up, there's a lot of stuff going on with Wild and Scenic. I would prefer to be on it, but I will not nominate myself. So whatever you guys want to do is fine by me. But I'd like to at least be the alternate. I just don't know if there's room for three.
Yeah.
We're going to get
One person and then an alternate.
one person and then an alternate.
I know, I've participated with that group, back in the Watershed Council days of 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08. So, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I live in the watershed. I know all the players, so I'm totally comfortable and would appreciate nomination and voting in on that.
Well, I will nominate you as the principal.
Okay.
Would it be
And
better for me
then,
just to not make a nomination for him and alternate?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Mr. Ratterman?
I'm okay with bowing out
Okay.
with Director Davidson showing his interest, and Director Strange also showing his interest, and I'd nominate, as part of this nomination, and maybe a modification of the nomination to nominate Director Davidson as the alternate.
Thank you. That's a better way.
Is that,
Okay.
is that, okay?
I second that nomination.
Nominate to close the nominations,
All right,
or motion.
Second.
Yeah.
okay. Public comment?
Yes, ma'am. I just for education. How many people sitting at that table? I'd like to know, and can you have 5 people at the table at McCollum?
This is public comment. Make a comment. This is not a discussion.
Okay, well.
I have a question for this
Has a
particular
question.
issue, ma'am, sir.
How many agencies are
people are
involved?
on that
At this table,
At the UMRA board, the UMRA board
table
itself,
over there
yes.
at the McCollum watershed?
Exact number, I'm
I
not
believe
sure.
it's
I'm guessing.
7?
Well, the county has representation.
I think it's 9.
The counties, I think there might be up to 9, 7 to 9.
Yeah.
Voting members.
I don't think the counties are
Voting members.
voting members anymore.
It's 7 that are voting
So they
members.
took the supervisors.
I think it's Jackson Valley Irrigation, it's CPUD, it's CCWD, it's East Bay Mud,
AWA.
and AWA.
Right.
And then they're,
3 counties, Alpine County, Amador County, and Calaveras County also have seats.
Yeah.
they're voting members still.
Voting
Yeah.
members.
Right, okay. So what did that make?
8. 8-ish.
There's a total of 9, I can't remember.
9.
I thought 9 originally.
Yeah, there's,
got
must
nine
be,
voting.
There's 6 water districts, 3 from Calaveras, 3 from Amador, plus East Bay Mud.
right, so there's 7.
No, there's only 2 from Calaveras, 2 from
Yeah, it's just CPUD and CCWD.
Yeah, there is 9.
That's 9.
9 people, okay. All right.
I forgot about
They all
Alpine.
have equal amount of interest in this particular issue on the McCollum watershed?
They all have equal voting power.
Powers, but equal interest.
You're talking about,
Okay.
You'd have to talk with all the agencies.
Yes, it's an
I'm just asking
IRW.
my
It's an
whoever's gonna be
IRW.
representative. I'd like to know, get it straight.
Well, the history,
It's an IRWM P program, and yes, each of the districts would have an equal interest, and that they're all participants, and they all have an equal opportunity to benefit.
I was just concerned how much stake they got in a game and that particular benefit that river gives, okay, regardless of a scenic or water rights and so on. Because it would be nice to have how much skin they got in that game.
That would depend on each one of the counties, and we're not in a position.
Does Alpine has skin in the game?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
The public is invited to at least participate in regards to being there and listening to the activities that go on during those meetings, and so you're more than welcome to participate.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
I think the next meeting, I think
Thank
it's
you.
next Friday.
Friday.
Friday
Thank you.
party. for you members.
No,
We
we got
need
to
a
vote.
Bring
Okay.
myself out.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Director Strange, Director Davidson, and,
Aye.
Aye.
okay, other organizations, and
We don't need to vote on
we
this.
don't need to vote on these.
No action required on this, Madam President.
As part of the discussion, Madam Chairman, I'd like to submit the letter that I had presented to the City of Angels Camp. I have been kind of spearheading the discussion between the various agencies and organizations along the Highway 4 corridor, that there is a political change, political will, if you might call it that, amongst these various organizations to want to come back to the table to talk. And the purpose is to do nothing more than just get a discussion going between these various agencies. And so I'd like to present that letter to each one of the board members and also to the general manager and the folks over here and any other member of the public who would be interested about this. And that this to me is an opportunity to maybe come back to the table. I'm not looking to take anybody over. I'm just thinking that the issues that lay along the Highway 4 corridor are somewhat unique, and that they need to be addressed by everyone that's involved if we're going to have any success going forward. And this is, to me, a perfect opportunity to begin that conversation.
Okay, and Director Mills, it might be best just to wait to hold off on distribution of that until we get to the board action or the board report item on 7. I'm
Oh, yeah. I can
not trying to
do
be a stickler, but this really would be more appropriate in that
that.
agenda item.
Okay, we can do it there.
Okay, are we ready for item
6C.
6C? Discussion action regarding the county's 2014 draft general plan. Director Mills.
Well, I'd only like to preface my comments and then turn it over to staff as to what direction we would like to go with it. I just go back to when I was running for this position and I had brought up the issue. I see the Calaveras County General Plan as representing the vision for future growth within the county and where that growth could be best cited upon the data that's presented. The vision to be fully represented, though, must include a complete discussion about where CCWD is best able to support that growth with adequate water supplies. As most are aware, the Calaveras watershed, San Andreas Public has got an issue. The State Department of Water Resources pointed out that with their compliance order recently. This is one of many attempts at obtaining the county's general plan over the past 10 years, and the general plan, although it contains 7 basic elements mandated by state codes, none speak directly to infrastructure issues such as water or sewer. I noticed that Brian Moss is here today with the Calaveras County. Brian Moss with Calaveras County Environmental Health did put forth a and I use that word facetiously, thought-out presentation in the past few months that delineates those areas within the county that have extreme challenges to adequate potable water supplies. In the past general plan updates, letters were written from many agencies to the county at that time expressing the need to add a water element and the reasons for doing so, and we also did that. We've put letters out at the same time. And today we are years into a drought, which is not considered in any part of the updated planning elements. Some projected rainfall models are stating this drought condition will last well into 2025, and that we're only in the beginning phases of our surface and groundwater drawdowns. Should this hold true, it will cause serious shortcomings with trying to use this general plan going forward. Keep in mind, planners use models that best suit their position. We can't afford to be looking at the best possible models for rainfall, but plan to continue challenges to our water sources and overall stability of supplying needs within the county. The current general plan under the public facilities and services, water and wastewater is mentioned. Under conservation and open space, water resources is briefly mentioned. Under safety, it's flooding. Water consumption by agricultural timber is not addressed, nor how watersheds are managed to meet long-term needs of the population as it grows. We look at the eastern San Joaquin subbasin encompassing Wallace, Burson, Jenny Lind, Valley Springs, and Milton as a prime example of an area that is challenged in relation to sustainable water availability. Paloma, as everyone knows, is a more dynamic issue. The general plan included much of the basic water, wastewater, stormwater information that CCWD has spent money to develop over the years, but it's only included in the background report. The information is not fully vetted into the mandated elements directly. In short, water almost has become an afterthought to Calaveras County within the elements of the proposed general plan update as I see it. And at minimum, I would recommend a detailed map of where our surpluses and deficits are located be incorporated into the land use element of the general plan. At most, I'd like to see every agency in the county to have an opportunity to voice their positions relative to the areas that they serve before the update is presented for public comment. For the county to move this update along without direct discussions and input from the various agencies impacted by the vision on where the county sees the county growing should be challenged. We should not be part of public comment and the public comment period because we at CCWD are not public. And that is my point.
And I
All
was
right.
supposed to recognize Larry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think that was a pretty good intro. This becomes sort of redundant, and perhaps we can dive into the discussion. Of
Yes, I think so. There is, obviously, there's a lot of backstory to this. There's a lot of history here. We kind of thought it would be best to give you some of that. Larry, maybe you can just kind of give them the background on the water element and the resolution, and really what the question before the board today, and that's really more direction than any particular action, but yeah, probably narrowing it to that would be a good idea. And as well, I'd like to thank Peter Maurer from the county planning director for being here as well, and if Peter, if there's anything you'd like to add, please feel free to do so.
Pretty brief. As Director Mills mentioned, the general plan update has been put out for review, 90 days, starting December 18th. And the full plan and backup information available at the county website. Three primary components: land use map, depicting land use purposes and density, the policy document, the heart of the matter, then the background report with additional detailed supporting information. I have the 8 required elements listed up here. After a closer reading of Pete's release memo, I realized that there is an optional element within this collection. That's the resource production element, which addresses ag, timber, mining interests, things that we typically would pay attention to. As Director Mills mentioned, land use certainly drives district planning. The conservation and open space includes issues on water resources, and then public facilities and services addresses just as the water, wastewater infrastructure services are included. The draft general plan addresses the minimum requirements to a large degree. It sticks to the minimum requirements of state law. A number of groups in the past have advocated for the inclusion of a number of additional optional elements as well as community plans. Starting back in 2006 and continuing through 2008, CCWD and other water and wastewater purveyors advocated for inclusion of a separate, distinct water element. But as we mentioned, the optional elements were not included in the draft general plan, but many of the policies from those discrete elements were. The county did have a number of objections that were voiced to wholesale inclusion of the additional elements that revolved around the obligations that they imposed, jurisdictional concerns, as well as the actual cost to implement the objectives within the various elements. I mentioned the formation of the water element group back in 2008 that included water and sewer agencies, some representatives of nonprofits, as well as members of the public, and they met on numerous occasions primarily through mid to late 2008. Their meetings resulted in the production of 2 documents, the water elements goals and policy report, which you have in your agenda packet, and the water element baseline report supplement, which you have reproduced in part. Both are available at CCWD's webpage. Just to reiterate, the purpose to the water element, tool for planning and management of water resources in the county, goals, policies, and implementation programs addressing water issues, supply reliability that we've discussed, water quality, and watershed management. To be more specific, just to dip into that document briefly, there are 9 goals within the water element goals and policy report. They cover water resource protection and reliability, water use efficiency, climate change adaptation and mitigation, water quality, wastewater management, as well as watershed management, stormwater and flood management, interagency communication and cooperation, and public education and awareness. After those documents were produced, the board adopted a resolution, 2009-05, approving inclusion of the water element in the general plan. This is staff's current direction from the board. So at issue is whether to continue to pursue inclusion of a separate and discrete water element in the general plan, and for staff to comment, make comment on the general plan itself. One side point that I have up here were the costs of the previous effort. I noted in my memo to the board, they were substantial, $147,000, not including staff time, and there was plenty of staff time that went into it. So the bulk of the expenses were the cost of the consultants involved in the process. And I also want to mention there's no specific budget to address this particular effort. That's the intro.
I bet you that, is it on our website?
Yes, it is on the
No,
agenda.
not the PowerPoint,
What are you looking for, George? The PowerPoint? Yes. That's what I thought.
Oh, you want the PowerPoint, or do you want the water element report?
I just want to
Okay. I have a couple comments. I'm not going to pile on to any of the current supervisors, and I don't like when people lump a group together. Particularly, there's nobody that's left on the board that caused the catastrophe of the general plan. I mean, it's taken them a decade to get the damn thing done. It's ridiculous. There's a couple of real critical points that in my travels over the years, I've met with pretty much every one of the planning directors or not directors, planning staff members over a period of time, whether it's with something I was working with or just in general, at some with the chamber or whatever. But we need to be super careful about. One thing, I read through this document again the other day. It is not a modern document anymore. It was a snapshot, and that's the problem with spending a great deal of money and being so specific about everything, is it doesn't take long for it to become obsolete. I believe our water element has some obsolete items in it that we would have to address, and that'll take time and money. So making a request to the supervisors at this time to adopt it might be troublesome, because I don't think they'll be able to, because they won't be able to meet the criteria. And plus, there's so many recommendations here that causes them to spend money and them to spend time. That's the other issue. They don't have the money or the time to spend. That being said, there's some significant things that all the water agencies, when we got together, we wanted to protect. And I think it's very important that we do that. One of the big issues in the last land use map that I saw, and I haven't seen, I don't even know if there is a new land use map. I think maybe that's being held back, but
No, I think it's posted.
There's a draft 3 now that came out in November of 14,
is it parcel specific?
December.
Okay. Well, I'm interested in looking at that, because when I met with the previous planning director, I was there in regards to a completely separate item, and I noticed that there were 4 or 5 big chunks of property in the Valley Springs area where I know that we had water and sewer service, literally pipes in the ground, fire hydrants, and people who had paid for sewer entitlements. That property had been put into resource production.
Oh, wow.
And I made that comment, and she says, like, well, there's oak trees here. So I wanted to take the areas that have oak trees and eliminate those from future growth, because I go, well, that, my head almost exploded. But that's a critical issue. We need to, I think our priority has to be to examine the development sites and make sure that they are centrally located and that we can adequately serve them with water and sewer service. That's got to be our priority here. Going along with every page of this thing, and if you'll read through it, I know anybody who read through this is going to see that there's unattainable goals in the water element that we wouldn't want somebody to put that burden on us. We may not be able to fulfill the burden financially and staff-wise. So I just think it's really important that that's where we look at this plan. You know, and then there was another area of, and I'm hoping this map has changed, but Vallecito had become the development capital of Calaveras County. Seriously. Yes. It had, it's the entire area, I forget the community development plan or whatever the phrase was for that shade, but it had 12 units per acre in Vallecito, and I'm like, well, who's going to serve it? You know, and so, I mean, I don't think we're late to the game here, but I think there's been a lot of work that's been done on speculation of where areas can be served. Burson was another area that they had put on the intersection of Burson Road and Highway 12 had been slated for multifamily units. Now, there's no water, there's no sewer down there. I mean, the wells that are there are, some of the people are trucking the water from Jenny Lynn Treatment Plant in that vicinity. So those are the shining issues that I think we got to focus our effort at and maybe even be site-specific about the development issues. Because one, some of those areas that were in resource production, and I haven't seen the newest map, but those areas are, there is no resource that anybody can viably put on their property. We have been counting on those areas for development. Some of them are in our assessment district. You know, and I believe that we have a responsibility. We sold bonds to allow people to hook up houses in those areas. I think we have a responsibility to the landowner and the bondholders to ensure that that happens. Plus, all of our financial models are based on development in these areas. And we have no financial model I'm aware of that calls for 1,000 more houses in Vallecito.
Which could happen.
Well, at least. I mean, it couldn't really happen because we don't have the water resource. And that's the other issue that I had, and I need to do a thorough review of this. I'm speaking in past tense because I know we've had a new planning director come in and changes have been made, but it was facetious to think that those areas in Burson and Vallecito were actually going to grow, but they were put into the matrix for the total build-out of the county. When you put high development areas that we can't serve water and sewer, you're being disingenuous to the public about our future growth. Because those areas aren't going to grow. There's no economic ability for anybody to take a sewer line down Highway 12 or develop a sewer plant for Burson, for the little township of Burson to put apartments in. That'll never happen. And so those are the kind of things I hope we want to focus on, you know, and I know I was specific about two little areas, and it could be different. I haven't seen the new land use map, but those are the things that stuck out at me in my travels. And while I don't want to get fixed on our water element, I don't want to be an impediment to the county to approving a general plan, but we got to be realistic about the areas we can serve. We need to make our comments based on our ability to serve and the reality of our past efforts, our master plans, and things of that nature, and try to marry those two things, what we can serve and what they're expecting us to serve. If they're expecting us to serve something different, then we need to start our preparation for that. Because I've always said I really kind of feel it's our job to comply with the county and their build-out requests. That's what back in the 40s, that's what they put us in charge of. Okay, county's going to make land use decisions, water district is going to supply them sewer and water. But we're at that point now where we got to kind of tell them, it's like, look, we can and we can't. and I think that we need to be straightforward with them about, no, I don't think we can serve that Vallecito area based on our facilities now. We'll have to develop new facilities, and we got to be straight with them. So.
Well, that's what I was asking for up front, was that the agencies have a conversation with the county prior to it being released to the general public, and being offered an opportunity to deal with those on an individual basis, knowing full well what we have. We're going to be, in essence, they're going to go ahead and adopt a general plan, and then we're going to go forward with a water master plan to try to meet those goals.
And I'm just concerned, you're right, I'm concerned that we can't meet many of their
We can't meet their
development.
goals, but they have a vision. They want to see this in these particular areas and directions, and I appreciate their effort trying to do that, but I also am concerned about whether or not we have the ability to support and what that cost is going to be to the residents of this county to get that done. And I'd hope that we would have an opportunity to revise their vision a little bit to be more realistic to what is our capabilities as a district.
Yeah.
And I'd like to echo a lot of the comments that Director Davidson had mentioned. You could add Wilseyville in the Wilseyville community plan.
Yeah, they had a
that
big
group.
They were big up there.
Draft map 1, draft map 2, pretty consistent. Draft map 3, very, very different than the previous 2 drafts. And I want to bring attention to page 2 on this general plan release, December 18, 2004. I've highlighted the land use request, in particular, the very last paragraph concerns me in that how the decisions, or who was a decision-making process at the county level that felt they could speak for the community, especially those individuals, which I was one of, that had spent a few years working with other community members and what we felt was best for our community. Number 1 is that they talk here about the reasons for changes to those maps being within 3 categories. Insufficient infrastructure to support the proposed land use. I agree with the kind of the intent of that statement, but yet when I look at, for instance, Wilseyville, in areas that have gone from either 1 home per acre or the higher density of whatever it is, 12 units per acre, and seeing the fact that, potable water is a 5-acre parcel away from that, the site that was previously in, and now has been taken out to a 20 to 40 acre kind of a thing, where 1 home per 20 to 40 acre, no transition, none of that. And then also realizing that even the regional sewer system is within a few thousand feet, lineal feet, of those parcels that they've been evaluated because of their topography in supporting a higher density, which the other areas that are within, anyway, I could go on and on and on, but then let me just, 2 other things. The request was inconsistent with the intent of the plan to direct growth into existing communities. Again, I think that's very arbitrary. And lastly, one of the things that concerned me the most is that the request was considered a pre-entitlement for some future larger development. Communities want to see development, certainly as a water agency, and looking at all of these little economy of scale issues. West Point and Wilseyville is an area that would certainly, we have infrastructure, both sewer and water service. If we had more development in there, which the community support, would be a good thing for this district.
Absolutely.
As far as revenue. And yet to see map 3 taken over 100 acres of potential focused development in very close proximity to our infrastructure, taken out of the idea of putting anything close to even 1 home per acre, that kind of concerns me. So the idea, I think, is very important, and was part of my campaign, is that we need to engage the county as far as land use policies. We need to be part of that decision because of the services that we provide, as well as other district water and sewer districts as well. And I really feel as though right now is the time with this community, or the general plan update, that we engage in. I was part of the committee in 2008, the Water Element Committee. I committed a lot of time and effort, especially in water conservation and water reuse. And to see, in my opinion, that process kind of go away. I understand the challenges that have happened, but at the same time, I'd like to look at what has been done for the $147,000 that we spent. Which of that effort is applicable in today's world? I really have an aversion to hiring a large consulting firm again like Mintier and Associates to come in at their outrageous rates. But at the same time, I think there's a number of opportunities for discussion as we move forward in helping to identify, as well as being able to look at our future needs. We're talking about grants and grant opportunities for infrastructure development. We need to know what, the county's land use maps, are looking like so that we can provide for, those zone changes. But lastly, how long ago was the general plan updated up to now? How many decades ago? When was the last general plan update? Or maybe development, which, by the way, Roosevelt has never been recognized on a general plan as a community. So it's our first opportunity, and we're looking forward to that.
Well,
Who can answer that question? When was the last general plan?
let's just, I can't tell you exactly, but going back, well, if he can. 96.
96. Okay, so if we have to wait another 15 years for another general plan update, we have to think now what's going to take place in the future 15 years to allow for the flexibility of either development or preservation or whatever those, land use is. So we've got to have that vision. And that takes a number of people in the communities to reflect that vision. Thank you. Or vision, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Well, I'm just curious as to what the county has requested of staff, or what our participation level has been in, because the draft plan just came out. Everything's been, in my mind, it's been pretty much generated in the planning department, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, with very little participation, but am I wrong? Have they been requesting information from us over the last bit of time?
Nothing specific on this go-round, but in prior efforts, we've supplied service capacity information, and part of that's included in the Water Element Baseline Report Supplement that came out in '09.
Really? See, that's kind of the whole thing. It's like it seems simple that there would be an overlay of infrastructure and service area, and development would fall on top of that. It seems simple. But no, it's not, because there's a lot of, and I'm not bashing anybody, we had the My Valley Springs groups, we had the conflict, we had all that nonsense, and the community plan, conflicts with everybody, we've got maps where we're expecting 60,000 people in Copperopolis, and that's actually part of our plan. Is that going to happen? Did the planning department? I don't know.
Well, my point is, let economics determine that at that time.
Sure.
It's not the opportunity that could support that. But again, as you know, with the development world, economics drives all that.
Hey, I got plenty of land I'm happy to sell you right now.
One of the things that I think is really going to control this is time and money, and I think everyone wants this general plan as quickly as possible. And so I think that there's going to be an avenue of trying to of working with the county, and our staff working with the county as closely as possible, and hopefully the county's working with other water districts that are not within our responsible, within our areas of service, I should say. But I don't know about, it seems like we've already gone through the creating a new general plan, $147,000 in, it's probably up to $250,000 plus now, plus probably more than a year of putting it together, and I don't think.
What are you talking about?
Of creating a new water element, as opposed to.
Well, we did this water element.
And it was $147,000, and it probably took a lot of time. What I'm suggesting is that we hear from staff as to what's possible. And what's possible with what the county wants to do, and I know they're trying to push this thing forward, and I think that's what everyone wants is less time between now and when we actually see a general plan, and what can staff do within that that period of time to try and create a shorter period of time and less money being spent between now and then. Can we hear from staff on?
Is there a county staffer here that?
No, our staff. We do have.
I'm just curious what they want from us.
Well, and could we hear?
From the county staff or?
Yes, let's start. If I could just put it, just a couple, before
staff is what I'm
Peter
asking
speaks,
for.
and again, thank you, Peter, for being here. I know this is never an easy subject, but a couple of thoughts I've got. One, I don't think it serves anybody well not to have a general plan in effect that is current, that is meets the legal requirements. I mean, you can think of so many things you think about the foundation of our water supply reliability, our water rights. A lot of our ability to continue to gain access to those rights depends upon the land use plan that we can point to say that this is the future need that justifies the continued access to those rights. So the fact that the county wants to move forward and finally get something in place, I'm very sensitive to that. On the other hand, I know we've got this resolution in place, and that's probably the most immediate question for the board to give direction to us is, are we going to do something other than this resolution? The representations that it sounds like we've received from staff, from the county, is that while the water element itself was not incorporated in whole, that there were pieces of it that were incorporated into the general plan. That, to me, I think, given the time sensitivity where we are and the desire not to have to redo a water element, and exactly the same things Director Davidson said, I would think it would make sense to try to take a more of a kind of a compromised approach. Can we get comfort in the language that's in the general plan addressing those specific issues so that there's meaningful commitments there that do protect the underlying purpose that we had within the elements of the water element, the components of that we were seeking to protect. And then as well, lastly, I think we need to take head on the issues that you're talking about, Director Davidson and Director Strange, about the actual, the practicality of what's in the maps and how that syncs up with our ability to supply that, and then some of the decisions of the communities as well. I would suggest, and Peter, if it's possible, is there a way for us to do that outside of simply sending in a comment letter to the county? I think it'd be much more productive if we could sit down and work with you and your staff, potentially, and this may be right for having an ad hoc committee of the board so that we can have access to some board members who can help us really work through this so we don't have to bring this to every board meeting and go through a long iteration on our comments. That would be my thought on it.
Because we're drawn to the fact that they began their 90-day public review and comment period on December 18th. So time is the real element. We have, 2.5 months?
Yes, March 18th or 19th, I think, is the deadline.
Yeah. Again, we don't have anything budgeted, so that, what does this mean to us?
And that's very true. And again, I feel for Larry, a lot of this is going to fall on his plate, and he's got a lot already on there, particularly a lot of work on very important issues like our water rights. And so yeah, we've got to be sensitive to that.
Okay, so that maybe at this point we can hear from Peter and we can calm us.
Thank you for showing up, by the way. We appreciate that.
Welcome, and thank you very much.
So many comments. So much to think about.
Sorry, we'll pull the arrows out.
No, it's okay. I sort of expected this. There were two areas that I knew were going to be quite controversial, one being water element, the other being the community plans. And so we hear both of those today. So
look at the holes in the sweater already.
Director Davidson, I think your comments were really right on point. And, maybe I'll step back a moment and sort of, a little about what I've done for the past 10 months since I've been here. I started on March 1st, and I think the primary direction from my board was to get the general plan adopted. But there is almost 10 years of history involved in the general plan, a lot of predecessors, a lot of involvement, community involvement, agency involvement, and I've tried to do my best to incorporate all that into the first available public draft. And I know this is not the final draft. I expect it to change. I look forward to working with Larry and Dave and all the other entities in the county to make this a general plan that the county can move forward with. One of the things that can't remember who brought up the fact that, the current plan is 20 years old now, or 19 years old. The worst thing we can do is adopt a new plan and put it back on the shelf. I intend to come back to my board regularly, at least every 2 years, if not annually, and say, here's where we're at, how are we doing? It's like a business plan. You don't make a business plan and then just sort of say, it's going to be good for 20 years. You look at it. How are we doing? Are we making money? Are we losing money? Do we have to adjust somewhere? Same thing happens with the general plan. And I think that it's really incumbent on the county to look at its plan regularly, see where it's working, where it's not working, make adjustments as we need to. It's a lot easier to amend 1 or 2 policies or change the land use status, tweak some things here, than to go through this 10-year process. I worked in El Dorado County before coming here. I was there for 28 years. I was around for 2 general plan wars. Actually, maybe it was just one. It's just sort of never ending.
Well, that's ours.
1990, and in 2004 it was finally adopted. Finally.
Well, you're perfect for this.
I don't want to go through that again. I appreciate that there's a lot of information that people have that have worked long and hard on various aspects of the general plan, particularly in this infrastructure. I'm new here, I don't know all the details. I did notice that Vallecito had 500 times more growth allocated to it than it would ever be needed. But that has changed. Burson was another one of those areas. I do need to look more closely at Vallecito. And that's what I hope that this time period that right now, and yes, it's officially 90 days. I'm sure it will go on much longer than that, because by the time we actually start hearings with the Planning Commission and board, those are going to take a long time as we work through all these issues. It's not going to be a one-day hearing and then, okay, now we're ready to go. I expect that there will be a lot of changes, there will be a lot of public comment. I want to work with as many agencies as possible to fix these issues now. Now is our chance to do it. This is a draft plan. And the idea is to get it out there, get it to where we want it to, before we spend the next $250,000 on preparing the EIR. And then I don't want to have to do that again. So one time, let's get it right the first time, and then we can do the environmental analysis so we can adopt that plan and not the cycle of amending the plan, studying it, re-amending the plan, studying it.
No, I think it's important to recognize. I mean, it seems like this is being shoved at us, but I mean, I've heard nothing but good things from county supervisors and stuff about the work you've been doing. I just kind of feel like I'm still a little bit in the dark, and some of it's my own fault because I have other things that I need to be paying attention to in regards to the general plan, but we are still at a slack time, and I want a general plan badly. Huge reason is to protect our water rights. We need to defend. We have to have an active general plan to defend that we need the water we need. But then we're going to have the whole other challenge of whether it's a valid general plan if there are areas that are slated for development that can't be served, or areas that have infrastructure in it that go into resource production. It's going to be very difficult for the general plan. It'll always be suspect, and then again, we'll never have any development. So I for one, am content to take a little more time and go through this better. And I'm also content not to push the water element, but suggest that we revisit the water element as a future item, because I would rather have a defensible general plan in our county and then go back to, because I also support an economic element, but I recognize that we don't have the time or the money, staff or the county doesn't have time and the money to do that. Same with the water element. I mean, I'm not going to die on the water element hill for this round, but I do want to see it as a future. You can always add issues to the general plan in your reviews, right? And that's hopefully the approach that we'll take, because I'd like us to help them get a defensible general plan that we can live with, and then continue to work with them to revise the element when budget and time allows it. So that's what I'm hoping we can accomplish.
Peter, is there a way that we could take the old general plan map and overlay the new proposed changes to that, so we can just kind of flip between the two?
All three, the current plan, the draft number 1, draft number 2, as well as draft number 3, are all available online. And if your staff wants to meet with you, we can work, we've got GIS capabilities at the county that we can pull that out and look at the differences. We can focus in on, the areas of your district as opposed to all the other water districts as well. So we have, capability. It's basically me and one consultant working on it, so it's, not a lot of extra time, but, I'm willing to do what I can to try to get it as right as we can.
My perspective is this: if we could most efficiently use our time, two things. One is that it may be valuable, as our general manager had mentioned, to develop an ad hoc committee sooner than later to be able to engage the county and others. But if I had a limited time and budget, time in particular, I would suggest that we look at the land use maps. That's going to drive so much of the water thing. And if we could get a large, it's very difficult on my computer screen.
Yeah, I
to
know.
flip from draft 1 to 2. Actually, 1 and 2 are very similar, but 2 to 3 and back and forth. So if we could get large maps that have the parcels on them, we could then identify where our existing infrastructure is and could possibly, and maybe your staff has done that, but I have a feeling that we probably have some more updated information here than maybe your consultant or staff has. And again, I don't know what that's going to take time-wise, but really focus on the land use map, because that'll tell us the zoning, and that's where, that's going to really steer a lot of development, or at least water use in those directions that we can identify. And if we could just focus on that, in my opinion, that would get a lot done. It's, not a perfect world, but
I would agree with you.
I don't think we need to just focus on our own service areas. We have a responsibility for the whole county. In essence, we can't just look at what we have. Our water rights encompass everybody.
Well, that's an important point. We may want to comment on some other agencies' comments.
Correct.
Because, we have a different view of, we're constantly getting agencies that are asking us to do more for them, and there's certainly, it's no secret that most agencies in the county aren't collecting enough money to pay for their aging infrastructure. So we may have comments in regards to some of these other agencies' comments.
Appreciate that.
I would agree with Director Strange as far as, the focus on the map. I think the other area that I would really appreciate some additional comments on is just the policies and the public facilities and services element. I think, as David said, I did review the water element. There was a lot in there that I felt was really out of the county's jurisdiction. We're not in the water business or the sewer business, but there is coordination that needs to occur. And so
You are in the well business.
we're on the development.
Yeah.
Well business.
On that, and that's where I tried to put the focus, was our reliance on providers, and to make sure that as we approve development, that capability is there. But if it's clear there's no capability there now or in the future, then why do we designate that for future development?
Exactly.
Obvious.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So to work with your staff, I'd be happy to do that. And so the two areas would be the land use map and coordinating that with known and foreseeable future capabilities, as well as the policy language and how that the interconnection and working together. I'm all about coordination, cooperation with other agencies. El Dorado was much like here, where lots of different separate entities that we had to coordinate with in order to make it happen. Try to bring that same process here.
On the, I have no interest in seeing the two previous maps as long as they're gone and you delete them off your computers.
Well, people want to compare.
Why though?
there is value though, Jeff, in looking at draft 2, which to me reflected more of the community's vision. And draft 3 now has been reworked by county staff. In some areas, it's very different. And so that's where the middle ground we're going to have to find is how the differences between what the communities wanted in draft 2 versus now in draft 3, what's been reworked by the.
Well, I have to look at draft 3. I'll go home today and try to pull it up. I agree. I don't like doing it on my computer because it's so hard to get. Is it parcel generated? Can you type in an APN and get it, or do you have to zero down in to get to try to find the location with landmarks?
I think you can put in a parcel and it will zero in, but I'm not certain of that, so.
GIS you can.
Yeah, you can do it through a GIS. The application that's online is not a direct connection to our GIS system. So that's why I'm not sure, but I'm pretty certain that you can identify a specific parcel, then see what's there. Otherwise, you can just sort of zoom in on that area and find that. But it does show parcel lines, it does show the,
Just one thing that I think would be helpful too is, and I know your schedule's going to change, but it would be nice to know what your schedule of events is going to be, so we can try to make sure that we're ahead of that, and the other agencies are ahead of that when they do their review. I think if you haven't already done it, it would be great to have your board's authorization to send out a request to all the other agencies, an actual request of each agency to do this work.